Hi folks, welcome to this video on hooliganism, also known as spectator violence. So this is going to be fairly short, sharp and brief. What we need to be essentially look at, what are the causes of hooliganism, what are the solutions, how do we stop it from happening, and why do we see hooliganism in some events and not others? So what is it about those events that potentially leads to spectator violence that we don't see in other sporting occasions? So let's have a look at the causes of hooliganism first. Well, as you can see, there's quite a lot. There's quite a few causes of hooliganism, as you'd expect, hence why it's difficult to stamp out. There is no one cause. If there's one cause, we'd have found the solution, we'd have sorted it out by now. But let's just have a quick look at these one at a time. And it's a case of remembering and memorising as many of these as you can, because don't forget, once you've got the solution, once you've got the cause of it, you can then figure out the solution. It's not too difficult to do, which we're going to look at in the second slide in a second. So, believe it or not, many of the hooligans think it's a display of masculinity. It's masculine to pick up a chair and smash it over someone's head. It's not at all, but it's their opinion. That's why a lot of them are hooligans, because they think it shows their masculine dominance. It's a case of gang culture. These people here have a group identity. This is who we are. This is what we do. But also being part of this mob, or this mob versus this mob, there's something called de-individuation, or your loss of identity, i.e., you are no longer responsible for your own actions anymore. Your own actions are the mob or the crowd's actions, not my own. So people can rationalise it that way. It's not me smashing a bottle into someone's face, it's the crowd doing it, which is absolutely ridiculous. But again, it's why people tend to do it, and hence why you sometimes get quite high upstanding people in society being hooligans or doing spectator violence. Also, media hype. If a game or a competition has been built up and built up and built up in the media over days and weeks leading up to it, that's going to build the tension, and then that's going to increase the likelihood of some hooliganism taking place. Obviously, there's an issue of alcohol and drugs being consumed before and during events that can increase spectator violence, and you're also much more likely to see spectator violence in derby games where there's a high level of local rivalry. It's just one of those things, it's bragging rights, isn't it? You want to be the side of the city or the side of the town that wins that game, and if you're not, then you might try and get your own back in other ways. A lot of people quote that it's an adrenaline rush to be part of a gang that's attacking another gang. And that's another reason why it takes place. You also generally find, again, hooliganism is still taking place in the UK, but it's generally taking place if you look at football in League One and League Two games, where there are lower levels of security. There aren't as many police. There isn't as much CCTV footage, so that they know they can get away with it a little bit more. Other causes can be refereeing decisions or any incident within a game. Can lead to it as well. A player scoring a goal, then celebrating in front of the opposing fans, which is never a smart thing to do, hence why they're often, the referees and the linesmen are there to try and calm it down straight away. But that's never a smart thing to do, because that can incite a bit of violence in the crowd. Sadly, although there is no good or bad cause of hooliganism, racism is an appalling cause of hooliganism, and it does take place, racial tension building up. But also, just generally the nature of the sport, you are more likely to see hooliganism in certain sports over others, and that's what we're going to deal with in the last slide. So these are the causes. So what are the solutions? So stopping hooliganism, we've got to think about what a lot of the causes were, and then just turn them on the heads a little bit. How are we going to sort that problem out? And here are some of the most common ways that countries, nations, police forces, etc. Some of the common strategies that they're doing to try and prevent and stop hooliganism from taking place. So, what can we do? Well, think about one of the problems. One problem was alcohol. That was one of the causes of hooliganism. So what we can do is we can do two things. We can get early kick-off times where we know there's something like a derby game or a big game, and we can therefore restrict the hours for pubs near that stadium. So if you have a 12 o'clock kick-off and your pub's open at 11 or 11:30, that's not enough time for people to get drunk before they go watch the game, and therefore you've reduced the risk of hooliganism, because people aren't going to turn up with high levels of alcohol in their system. So they're two that work well together. And linked in with that, what we also see is better behaviour in all-seater stadia. The reason being that once you've bought all-seater stadia means you're definitely know how many tickets you're selling. You're not going to oversell tickets. If there's a stand where there were no seats, you could maybe think, I could maybe sell another 100 tickets, cram them all in. With it being all-seater stadia, every person has their own individual space, which means that there's less confinement, there's less people barging into each other, and that also reduces the risk of hooliganism. What we need to do, we said racism was an issue, so we need to prosecute racist acts. Don't just slap on the wrist or don't be saying that. These people need to be prosecuted. It is illegal to be racist or to be guilty of racism. So let's get them prosecuted. Some of you might know this, some of you might not know this. It's actually now illegal in trespass laws. If you enter that pitch, that field, you have trespassed onto private property. Now, what happens is when a team wins a competition or wins a game and everyone invades the pitch and it's all good and happy, the clubs will kind of let that go. But if someone enters the pitch illegally, to cause some violence, then those people can be prosecuted under trespass law. So let's make sure we do that, encourage the clubs to do that. We can also then ban known hooligans from the grounds, and linked into that, let's confiscate their passports. Let's stop them travelling abroad for European games and international games. Look at those Chelsea fans that were guilty of racism on the metro to the Paris Saint-Germain fans. We live in a world now, good or bad thing, where it's 24-hour media culture. We can film people on phones. So let's use that footage. Let's get them banned. Let's highlight who these people are. Let's prosecute them. Let's get them known to the clubs in and around the area, and let's confiscate their passports so they cannot travel abroad and be guilty of racism in this country or ours. Those two go hand in hand well with this one. We need the police forces to share information. So it's no good you knowing who the hooligans are coming to your stadium, Old Trafford, the Emirates, something like that. We need to make sure that that information is shared with other police forces in other parts of the country so that they know to ban the right people from their stadium as well. This all comes under the banner of increased police and CCTV footage. Get them on CCTV, we know who they are, we can confiscate their passports, we can share their information, or we can see them live and get witness statements and things like that. So we need to increase the police and CCTV footage around our stadia. And finally, we need to ban ticket touts. For those of you that don't know, ticket tout is someone who will buy a lot of tickets for a game and then sell them outside of the ground, usually at a profit. Well, the thing is, they don't know who they're selling them to. If you've got a known hooligan, you will not sell them a ticket from your ticket office. However, that known hooligan can then go buy a ticket from a ticket tout because they don't care who they're selling tickets to. They don't have a list of names and images of faces who they should be not selling tickets to. So we need to ban ticket touts from in and around the stadia. And that's going to stop. And that's what is being done in the UK a lot in particular to try and prevent hooliganism, particularly at football matches. Which leads me into the last point. Why do we see more hooliganism at things like football than we do at things like the Olympics? And that's the final thing we're going to look at now. So there we've got an Olympic crowd, there we've got a football crowd. No hooliganism, lots of hooliganism. Why does it take place? What is this thing about hooliganism in certain sports? Well, let's have a quick look. Well, here's a little point. So let's marry them up together, okay? Well, one of the main reasons, remember what we're seeing here is we're seeing low levels of hooliganism here, and we're seeing potentially, can't spell, high levels of hooliganism there. So why? Well, this is once every 4 years, that's every week. There's a little opportunity to organise violence and hooliganism at Olympic Games, where there's lots of opportunity to organise it when you're all coming together as a group every week. So there's an obvious reason why. Also, even though it's big and global, there's less media hype surrounding these events in terms of rivalry. The media are drumming up England v Germany, England v Scotland. They're not doing things like that to the at Olympic sports where they do that at football and rugby and things like that. So there's much less media hype. There's an alcohol drinking culture associated with these kind of sports where there isn't associated with the Olympic Games. Equally, what else is different about the crowd? It's much more family orientated at the Olympics. Mums, dads, kids. Okay? Whereas, you get a lot of families going to football, but it's a lot more male. And that's what we associate with hooliganism. It's white working class males. They're the ones who are most likely to be hooligans. And that's just me saying it as it is. That's just facts. That's proven. It's white working class males who are more likely to be your hooligans, okay? As we've kind of already alluded to, sorry, because you meet up every week, there can be much more pre-arranged violence at a game of football in comparison to Olympic Games, because you see each other and you meet each other all the time. Also, as well, in the Olympic Games, the crowd is from many countries, so it's less intense rivalry. Some might go, in that more intense? Well, you know, if you're sat in and amongst Germans, French, Swiss, Americans, Canadians, Indians, you're less likely to have loads of support around you. If you do an act of hooliganism, it's very unlikely people around you are going to back you up, because you're all from different locations. So the fact that your crowd is from many countries reduces the risk of hooliganism as well. Don't forget as well, what is at the heart of things like the Olympic Games is the fair play Olympic ethos, which obviously goes totally against hooliganism, hooliganism goes totally against that. And they're the key reasons why you are more likely to see acts of hooliganism at football games as you are to, at Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games and European Championships and things like that. So that covers everything on hooliganism and spectator violence. I hope you found it useful, folks.